everybody. Living Spaces is going to be redecorating our stage up here while I talk to you for a moment. I'm really pleased to introduce our next panel moderator, Shad Baiz. Shad's got a long history with our company. He's started off as a very young boy, actually. Indirectly, his mother and father, Pat and Dawn Loris, started a company. Oh, it is right up here. Started a company in Ballard called Vision's Espresso Service, and they shared space with our company. La Marzocco at the time, I think we were called ESI, but it might have been something else. And during that time, Shad was, his first summer job with us was as a bookkeeper, which surprised me when I heard that. His second summer with us, he got a little bit more involved in the technical side of our business. Like his father, he excelled very quickly at that and was clearly his calling. I don't have any confidence monitor here, so I'm going to wing it. During that time, he was being mentored by the very people that mentored me 10 years earlier. So it was very amazing to see when I met Shad that we had both come to the same conclusions about our wonderful, iconic brand. When I first met Shad, we had lined up immediately, had the same ideas, began immediately dreaming of the day we might work together and take on the world, particularly in Southern California where we both lived. When I first met Shad, he had started his company in 2000 called Solutions Espresso Service in San Diego. And during that time, I had just started directly with La Marzocco as well, and so I'd gone down to see Shad, and it was right away we just figured each other out. We, just lined up, and our values for this wonderful brand and our industry were just the same. And as we fast forward to about a year ago, we're looking for a regional technical support specialist to help support some of our business on the West. And we did our normal process of blog posts, attracted some very talented people that we started to interview, getting very close to actually pulling the trigger on someone. When Shad put his hat in the ring, that's when the searching ended. Shad was a perfect fit for us. We brought him on board. It's his quiet confidence, like his father, never a cross word for anybody. We're really just some of the very building blocks of where we're going. This isn't helping me here. So as we went forward, Shad started training a great deal number of people with our company, people that have really come along very quickly in the first year. I don't want to waste a whole lot more time in speaking about Shad because I don't want him to blush, but I would like to introduce Mr. Baiz. If you would come up.
Okay. Wow, it is bright up here. I can't see anybody. That's going to be odd. Thanks to Mike for that introduction. And my first opportunity to formally thank Kent and Joe, my boss Larry, and Mike Lance for having me on board. It's been a dream and it's a real pleasure, so thank you. I have the opportunity to be humbled again in welcoming 3 long-term service technicians to the stage who all have unique business models. They have unique ways of approaching service, but they have one core thing together, which is that they put customer service first, and the customer's experience and their ability to continue to serve their product and their customers is at the core of all their businesses. So that's something that's important to La Marzocco, important to me. It's been important in my business. And so with no further ado, first we'll bring from Stumptown, Alex Lambert. Thanks, man. He's the director of field operations for Stumptown. He's running 15 technicians, maybe more, a little more. 15 technicians out in the world, doing a wonderful job of it. And so I'm happy to have him here. Next up, we'll have Magnus Adamson from Sweden. And barista, his company is Barista Service, soon to be in New York City. Thank you for coming up. Running a fleet of 7 technicians in Sweden currently with a completely paperless administration process, which I'm excited to learn about. And then we have Danny Lokash from, excuse me, I'm getting a little bit choked up there. True Brew Coffee Outfitters. Thanks, man. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. You're taking your time, your willingness to be here with us, and excited to get a load of these ideas. Have a seat. See how this goes. I'm just going to put those aside. I guess first thing I want to know about all of you is sort of your origin story, where you came from and how you got into coffee. I know none of us probably went to school for coffee. So why don't we start with you?
Sure. I guess I grew up pretty broke in Salem, Oregon, and I've always had, if I wanted to have a car, I want to have a motorcycle, I want to have a bike, I've always had to kind of like fix my own stuff, and I've had a pretty good head for that. My first job as a barista was in 1996 in Phoenix, Arizona at a little bagel shop, and the training there was pretty much like, here's a picture of a mocha, make it so. And I did that for about a year and thought I was really awesome at it, and moved back home to Portland in 97 and got a job at Seattle's Best Coffee as a barista, and got a ton more training and knowledge that I had no idea about, and really just kind of fell in love with coffee. And through that job, I was there for about 8 years, and was a barista, cafe manager, a trainer. Went on to start helping open franchises when they started to do that, and got out of that for mostly travel-related reasons. There was a ton of travel, and became an account manager. And we didn't have a service company, internally at that time. So when I would get calls from our customers that their machines were down, I just would kind of take it upon myself to go and see if I could figure out how to solve the problem before we had to have them spend money with a outside company, and just got really interested in the inner workings of coffee equipment. That's really awesome stuff. I left there and took about a year-long break from coffee, and was building signs, which was not that exciting, and was basically waiting for somebody to die at Stumptown so I could get a job there. And hassling Dwayne whenever I saw him, and this was in 2005. I got hired at Stumptown as a tech, and the guy that hired me is a really cool guy named Ken Kiggins, and he basically taught me everything he knows, and it's kind of blossomed from there. He moved on. It was just me in an Astro van servicing our accounts in Portland, and now I've got 15 technicians in 4 states and a fleet of vans and that kind of stuff to manage, and it's just crazy but awesome.
Riding the wave.
Yeah, riding the wave the whole time.
Right on.
Yeah.
Magnus, you want to tell us a little bit?
Definitely. I'm not from the coffee industry from the beginning. I started to work for a company that I was in the restaurant equipment business, but on the cold side of drinks dispense. So I started my career in sales in draft beer and soft drinks equipment, and I was headhunted to a company that eventually got the distribution for La Marzocco because we wanted to broaden our range of equipment, and we struggled a bit with that because we didn't understand the culture. And this was I started in '92, and then we started in coffee in '98 or '99. I think Tully's was the first installation we made in Stockholm, 1998. Somebody came over from ESI at that time, helped us out with the installation, Eventually it started to move a little bit, but very, very slow. And then I decided to leave that company, and that was about a year after Guido and Lorenzo started to work for Marzocco, and we already by then gotten quite a good relationship, and my resignation letter went out, and I actually decided at that time, 2004, to leave the business. I wanted to do something different, and or the industry. I want to do something different. But about 2.5 minutes after the resignation letter ended up in Guido's inbox, he called me and said, "You know what? If you are leaving that company, so am I. So why don't we do something together?" So the initiative for me to be an entrepreneur and on my own since late 2004 is actually Guido's. So I'm really thankful for that. And since then, I've been obsessed by selling expensive stuff. So
Nice.
High-end
Great
equipment
fit.
and charge premium. I've always liked that a lot. So compared to other competition we have, they tend to have a range of equipment that's from low end to mid to high end, and I've always only stick with the high end stuff. So that's where we started out. We were 2.5 as much expensive as the most sold machine at that time in Sweden, and today, 12 years later, we have about 20% of the market share in Sweden. We also
Nice.
have an operation in Norway and one in Denmark, and we are the sole distributors for Marzocco, but we also work with companies like Steampunk, Diedrich, Matzer, of course, and other high-end producers. And barista service started as a lie, and I came to the biggest account available at that time, supplying coffee equipment and service, and this was in April of 2007. And they asked me, "So how does your service setup and service organization, what does that look like? Because we want you to do service on all our equipment." And then I said, "Okay, I'll do that for you, but you need to buy all the equipment from us exclusively, and I'll take care of your equipment." So that's fine. They had like 30 shops at that time. And they said, "Yes, that's fine. So how does your service setup look?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't present that here now." And that was the lie, because I had no clue what I should do, no clue I had no idea. So I took the elevator down from the 7th floor in the city center of Stockholm down to the street and went out, and I saw a service van where an artisan profession was connected to service. And there and then I said, "Shit, it's barista service." And of course I'm going to hire coffee knowledgeable people to do service on coffee equipment. So that's where it all started. So this is a number of years later, and here I am.
Here you are. I don't know if you guys are noticing a common theme that so far Whitney, myself, both these guys have left coffee and then been sucked back into the swirl. If anybody's just thinking about getting into it and you're not sure, just run, because you'll never make it out. Sorry.
If you're thinking about getting out, I think don't, because you're just going to be back here.
Yeah, you're just going to be back. If you've been in it more than a year, you're in big trouble.
It's terrible out there in the real world.
Yeah.
Mr. Locash.
All right. Let's see. First, I mean, this is a very nice couch for all three of these big men to be sitting on it. So I'm very gracious that we're not like sardined in. Oh, yeah, I mean, would you like that? Okay, let's see. I've been with a company now called True Brew for about 9 years. I just hit 9 years. So I've been in Chicago for 9 years. Met my wife there, had 2 children there. When I first got the job, I was actually a vending machine filler. I drove around and filled up vending machines. I was able to fix things, so they allowed me to fix them. So our roots were really in office coffee and office vending. We started to get requests for third wave coffee and specifically Metropolis. So we created this partnership between the 2 companies, and we were able to put Metropolis into offices, and then Metropolis was having a difficult time breaking into the restaurant scene, so we collaborated together and we were able to provide the equipment. So part of this partnership was a tech/coffee geek. So naturally they're like, "Danny, you have tattoos and plugs. Do you want to be a coffee technician?" And I'm like, all right, that sounds fine. Like, I think they went to like one SCAA and they saw like the random amount of people, and they're like, you look like you fit the mold. So I was able to spend a good like 2 months with Tony, one of the owners of Metropolis, learned everything I could about coffee, and then I did every install, every service call, 24/7 for 3 years. So it was a long run. My first install, I blew up a board on a Fetco because I trusted the electrician that it was a single phase and not 3-phase, and he ran a live wire to my neutral. So I learned everything from just hard knocks and as many phone calls as possible. If I couldn't figure it out in 5 minutes, I was calling somebody. So I relied a ton on manufacturers. So I made a lot of phone calls. I just recently transferred or moved out of the service department as a manager. So we hired a new director. It's 7 technicians, a director of service, an assistant director of service, a lead trainer, and an administrator. Because what I've learned is technicians are absolutely terrible with administration, and we should not try to do it because billing will be 3 months late. So I've hired somebody who's skilled with administrative, and she loves it, and she keeps all of our crazy minds in check to get it all completed. So when we say we're getting a PM check done and we're sending in the paperwork, it gets done right away. My new position is still service-oriented. It's more like high-level sales and serviceability. So for so many years, we just fixed our own equipment. We own a lot of 1,200 Curtis brewers because we provide all of our equipment to our customers when they buy our coffee. So we learned all these tricks about how to get stuff from manufacturers. So I know if something breaks within the first year, what it is. I know who I could bill for my labor. I know who's going to give me the parts for free. And now we're letting this knowledge go out, and we're being more of a third-party service provider. And there's three parts to my new position. One being service sales and equipment. So I love coffee equipment. I love espresso equipment. It just like gets me excited, especially when you think about like putting it into a bar and what the flow is going to be. Cafe consulting, assisting sales through a service lens, which is like needed. Because it makes things a reality and not just like promising the customer what they want and saying, no, that won't work because you don't have the power. And the last thing is just creating partnerships in the coffee community. I love people. It's one of my favorite things is getting to know people, working together, really seeing people thrive. I love taking somebody who doesn't know anything about coffee or fixing things and helping them create a career as a coffee technician.
Great, thanks, man. I want to pick up on the administration thing you just pointed out there. Technicians are definitely a different breed when it comes to producing their paperwork, and it's very hard to get them to grasp the concept of once the job's done and the tools are put away, that there's still a whole nother piece of administrative work to do, and can make them pretty grumpy and a little resistant. Now, my experience with Stumptown technicians has been that their morale is extremely high. They provide an extremely high level of service in a competent, relaxed, and happy manner. Since you're their administrator, how are you communicating with your company and your technicians to help them sort of maintain that morale and keep that quality of service so high?
Well, I guess, when I got hired 11 years ago, it was me and one other guy, and we shared an Astro van that had like shelves bungee corded into the back. It was crazy. And we both kind of had this get it done and get it done right, and it's all about, getting everybody the best coffee, but also in like a really awesome way. And I had when I was at Seattle's Best, I was managing a cafe, and I had this really terrible experience with a service company that really stuck in my mind when taking this job, especially where we had a grinder that went down. Our bulk grinder had gone down, and I did everything that I could think of, push the reset button, check a breaker, make sure it's plugged in, all of that kind of thing. And I had called this service company in Portland, and that we were, it was our like preferred vendor, and told that guy everything that I had just told you, and he said, we'll see you in 2 days. Like, okay, well, I have to actually be able to grind coffee for my customers and brew coffee. That's not going to work well, but
You had something
you're
made
my
out
option,
of wood
so.
on the back bar with a crank.
Right, yeah, we considered it for sure. We actually were 2 doors down from a coffee people, and we just asked if we could use their grinder occasionally during the day, and they were super awesome and let us do it. But when the tech showed up, 2 days later, he came in behind the bar, pulled the reset button, then pushed it, and then wrote me a bill for like $150. It took him 1 second to do, and he could have told me that over the phone. And you know, as a cafe manager, that was really frustrating. And coming into this position and having background in both being a barista, managing a cafe, and you know, dealing with that side of it, I never wanted to have any of our customers have that same type of experience. So when I go to hire technicians, that's something that I really impress on them in the interview process, is not only that this job can be really difficult and you know, sometimes thankless because you're a little behind the scenes, but when you're in front of the wholesale customers and even our internal accounts, you know, our internal cafes, which I sort of consider a customer as well, that I don't want anybody to ever have that kind of experience with our work. So, and that's so I pick employees when I'm in the interview process that have coffee background for sure, and also customer service background in addition to maybe some technical skill, even if it's not being a technician per se, you know. So I look for like more, if they're going to be a good fit with our team, and then also that they're going to be like passionate enough to get the job done even when it's midnight or you're getting a call at 4 in the morning, or we do preventive maintenance in our cafes every 6 weeks after hours. Yeah. So the whole crew goes out every 6 weeks and works until 1 in the morning. And then I guarantee you the person who's on call that week is going to get a call at 5 a.m. It's like clockwork. And so that's all stuff that I'm also really upfront with in the interview process. It's a really difficult job, and I kind of try to scare them a little bit. And if they still want it, I'm willing to train them. So and I
hiring practices are really at the core of that.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we do is our training process is really hands-on. Like it's a lot of ride-along stuff. And so you might be 6 months in the field before you actually get your own set of tools and van to drive around in, because I'm going to make you ride along with me, with Double J. I don't know if you guys know my West Coast service manager, who's awesome. Ride along with him and ride along with every other tech that's in the market that you've been hired in. And then we also fly them to Portland. You know, if we've hired somebody in New York, every single one of our techs comes through,
get some good enculturation,
and spends a week
there.
or two riding along with us, so they get the whole picture.
So he just threw out a great number, 6 months. How long do you guys feel like it takes you and your companies to train up a technician before they are considered autonomous?
Depends on how much need there is. It might be 1 month.
How busy you are before they...
You know, if we're a couple installs in and all the senior techs are doing installs every day, and I need you to go replace a shower head on a Curtis machine, you're going out on your own. But, you know, fully trained, able to self-manage in that role about 6 months.
It's similar for us as well. What I tend to do is talk to them about all this. In the process of hiring them, we talk about everything for exception of putting the screwdriver to the machine. Customer service, the fact that they are our ambassadors, and that goes both ways. I mean, we need their information from the market, because since we are not a coffee company that is in a regular connection with the customer, we need their feedback about stuff, you know. If the machine is old, it's supposed to be replaced, or a suggestion to a customer, so on. So I normally tend to say that probably 30% of the tech's work is actually technical, not from a time perspective, but mentally it's important for me, because we ask them to debrief the customer every single work order they do, every single call out they do. So they have all the details of the customer. So if there's anything, if it's a new shop, maybe they are requested to take pictures and send to the head office and just say that we are so impressed and happy that we're customers of that you are customers of ours, and this new shop looks fantastic. So we try to give them a little bit more. So the culture aspect also that Alex is mentioning is super, super, super important for us.
And you mentioned something when we talked on the phone, that you primarily hire baristas. You start with coffee knowledge and train the technical.
Yeah, I think the coffee knowledge is more crucial and important. And that's only because the experience I had since before were that, somebody asked a technician, can you set the temperature of this espresso machine? And that guy, and this is like, let's say it was 2005 or something, he said that, no, the temperature is factory set. So I thought that, okay, maybe it's good that they know. And the feedback we get is impressive, because people say, you know what, your techs are better coffee guys than our baristas. So every time they're out there, they can learn something. So that's great feedback from my perspective.
I know, Danny, you guys have a tagline, coffee people fixing coffee machines.
Yeah.
So you operate off that same model.
Yeah, I kind of go, well, when I was hiring, I'd always base off a character. So being a technician is a very difficult job. You run really long hours. It's unexpected. You don't always know what you're going to be doing. One phone call as a service manager can change your whole entire day. It could change your whole week. One very important customer's down. You have a whole nother 2 hours of rearranging everything. So when I'm hiring a technician, one, there either has to be a lot of interest in coffee, or just in like artisan type of, into food, into experiencing wine, some type of draw to a craft type product. Because you could encourage somebody to be into stuff like food, but you can't necessarily give them passion about it.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially like some of the smaller service calls, it's really easy to train somebody on it. It's not difficult. If you have someone who's willing, that could really like take being a punching bag for a couple months,
Yeah.
because you go into some of the worst situations, and people are losing revenue, and you're supposed to be the answer. And so I really try to hire people that, one, customer service, like if my pleasure is a part of their vocabulary, like that's a great part. Like, my pleasure to help you, that's what I'm here for. And on top of that, just the ability to roll with the punches. Yeah. Like, have you been in a situation where it's difficult, you need to come up with a solution and talk somebody down from something? Because that's essentially what you're doing. You're talking somebody off a ledge like every time you go into a cafe, because they are so upset. Rightfully so.
Yeah, they're at their weakest moment, right?
Yeah.
It's broken, they can't fix it, and they're losing money.
For sure. So it always comes down to like kind of like this craft mentality, and then we have an in-house training program. Our in-house trainer is amazing. Her name's Lindsay Leader. She's one of the U.S. Barista Championship judges, and they do weekly classes, and we really just try to integrate it into their whole personality of it.
Cool. And do you find it's easier as a coffee roaster to instill a coffee knowledge into a technician that maybe is coming from a different field, or do you really tend to skew towards somebody that's already passionate about it?
We've definitely got kind of a mix. I have a lot of internal hires, so Jason Johnson, Double J, who I just mentioned, he's been at Stumptown 10 years now, and he started off in production bagging coffee. And when it was time to get a second or third person in the department in Portland, he had approached me a bunch of times, just interested in it, and hey, if you ever need any help, let me know. So I took him on a ride along. I was just like, come on your day off, come get in the van, let's go drive around, and you'll see what we do. And he was like, I want to do this, I want to learn this stuff. But he already had that sort of coffee background, even going before working at Stumptown. One of our long-term techs in Portland started as a barista 15 years ago, managed our division cafe for a long time, and same kind of thing. Like, he just wanted to learn something new, and I think, you bring up the word craft, and you hear that a lot these days, but being a roaster, we approach it that way, and we also try to approach the technical side of it that way. So all of our baristas go through training regularly, and we go to cuppings, and we do all of the things that the baristas would be expected to do. Because the other thing is that as a roaster, we have to be knowledgeable about what what our standard is as a company and what we want to put out there as a product, and that, you know, if we're selling it to a wholesale customer, that they are getting the same level of service that I would give to Division, you know, or Division Cafe, and that we also understand the why, like why it's got to be that way, and that's, yeah, it's really important to us. And the other thing is that I feel like as a roaster doing wholesale, being a technician in that situation, you have a relationship, an ongoing relationship with these people that, you know, we have customers that we've had for 15 years that predate me working at Stumptown by a long time, and I can't, you know, none of my techs can go in and just be like a grumpy tech guy, because we know them. We have to work with them all the time. Yeah, absolutely. So
I guess with the theme of collaboration, that's a great point. You talked about trust and having to respect these guys. How do you handle your relationships with third-party vendors? Like, I know you work with third-party vendors in different markets and things like that.
That one right there.
Okay, that's right. Danny does that. What is the primary challenge you see in that market, and then what do you do about it?
Yeah, it's been tricky as we've grown. We opened a roastery in Seattle in 2006. There's obviously a lot of options for service providers in Seattle, and we had kind of like a level of service that we expected that we couldn't really manage from Portland. So in that case, we just kind of ended up doing it ourselves and making the drive. And we did that for a couple of years until we hired somebody. We kind of had the same situation when we moved out into New York. There's not a lot of options out there, and again, we weren't super happy with what we had to work with there, so we brought it in-house and started to train up. True Brew has been awesome for us in Chicago, a really good partner, and it's interesting. I think we've just sort of finally been able to figure out which third-party service providers have that same level of commitment to the industry and coffee as a whole that we do, and that are willing to collaborate with us.
So was that a bar raise for you when they came along and approached you guys, or were you just nimble enough to accommodate?
Yeah, I mean, we continue doing what we're doing, because similarly, we're preparing our own equipment. So like, if we don't do something fully, if we don't do the repair that is like the deep repair and just put Band-Aids on it, we're gonna get called back out. And so when I was responsible for the amount of hours that the technicians are going out, my payroll, because so much of our service department is bankrolled by our distribution. So not necessarily bringing in the paychecks. So if we had to revisit a call twice, we weren't getting paid for it. I was just losing my labor to revenue kind of goal. So when we took on Stumptown, like, we had a great relationship with Horgan. He kind of hung out with us quite a bit, Mike Horgan, and we just kind of continued doing what we were doing and just making sure we took care of it the best that we can. So yeah, I think that it didn't necessarily raise our level, but we definitely paid attention to them as a big customer and making sure that they were happy.
So Magnus, how do you approach that angle? He has an all-in-one solution where he's representing coffee companies and selling other products, allied products around the service industry itself, whereas you're a pretty dedicated third-party technician. How do you sort of strategically fill in those gaps and make sure that you have a high enough bar to collaborate with large-scale customers in your region?
I think it's similar to what you just said about we just do what we do. I'm confident in the concept. I'm confident in the guys, and any kind of negative feedback is handling really, really, really seriously. And we have virtually no loss of customers over the course of these years that we have been running barista service. So I would say I think that our standard is probably higher than the buyers'
and most of your
standard in a
customers
way.
come in.
Yeah. So we don't treat it in a special way. We are getting more picky on what customer we want to work with, since it's getting more mature now. And then I'm talking about Sweden, of course.
Sure. Great. Our timer's at 0. Does that mean we're done?
Yeah. It says please transition to Q&A.
Q&A? All right, you guys, thank you so much for giving us your perspective. I appreciate it. Let's go see what some of the folks out here have to say to you guys. And you're going to take the other side. Joe Monahan.
I don't really have much of a question, but I definitely have an observation, and that's that that I want to give to you guys and any of the other technicians in the room who have the ability to witness this at some other point. That's, I don't think you guys get near enough recognition for how important you are to the industry. I see you guys out there all hours of the night in the worst of circumstances, and I know we couldn't do what we do without with you guys. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I don't really have a question. I just have I have a lot of admiration. I was a tech for years, and then I trained techs. One thing that I kind of hear in you is when you would have a customer far away, and you'd ask them all the questions about the grinder being plugged in correctly or reset, and then your tech drives 2 hours and realized that the barista was actually looking at the refrigerator cord being plugged in and the grinder cord was not plugged in, and the technician would be terribly angry. And I'd say, look, you're here to serve them. Are you happy that it was simple, or do you wish it was incredibly complicated and you had to come up with a new contactor? And I mean, you know, be happy. But I really, as you're telling these stories, my heart is swelling. And yeah, you know, the techs will never get the gratitude on one level, but on another level, you're Superman. You show up where there's a problem and you make everything right again. And you're dirty. You know, I always had to keep a spare pair of clean pants and a clean shirt in my truck in a Ziploc bag because you'd leave a job trashed. And no one appreciates that except your other techs. So my hat is off to you.
As somebody who's sold equipment for 16 years, again, I want to say thank you because it wouldn't be possible without you guys. But the question I have is, Magnus mentions he's using tablets. Is there any other technology that you're using or foresee using in the future that will help you respond quicker or be more complete in the process of servicing equipment? I think that'd be interesting for people to share.
Okay. When we started the company, I was almost obsessed with the fact that I needed a software to support it. So I found a local Swedish company that was able to give us what we wanted, and that's really from more than one perspective, because I hate administration personally as well, as we have been touching on today with text that doesn't like administration. So today we are running a local Swedish system that helps the whole process, all the way from the work order coming in through various ways. The customer can come into our system through a portal, an online portal, and they can call and they can, of course, email and text. And all our customers' machinery is like inventory in our system, connected to the serial number, so we can track everything we do. There are other pretty smart things in the system we are using where our technicians are using a kind of a self-control system when it comes to their competence. So we let them decide where they are on a scale from 0 to 5 on each of the equipment that we sell and service. So a technician that puts a 0 on a linear PB, for instance, he doesn't even know about the machine. And number one, he knows about it, and then gradually he will be a senior technician. And that's a good way of reviewing it, and that's put into the system as well. So the response to the customer will be right, because the person that is dispatching will know the competence of the local technical guy. On top of that, we will see them all on the screen on a map, so we can tell them, we can tell the customer how far away they are, and stuff like, you know, we will repack all spare parts that we buy into welded small plastic bags. We mark them with a barcode, the same part number as the manufacturer, description, and makes it easier for the technician to handle that. And long-term analysis about what kind of spare parts we need. We look at the service trucks as more of a rolling warehouse than anything else. The latest one we are purchasing now that we get delivery of will be a full-size Mercedes Sprinter where they can stand inside with a workbench, 110 volt, all spare parts in assortment boxes and stuff like that, and connection to the invoice system. So there's no paperwork at all for the technicians. I'm not sure if that answered the questions, Anastasia. Yeah.
This is a little more for Alex. Is there any kind of struggle between charging and not charging for service as it relates to your roaster and you're like trying
Wholesale
to help it out?
There's I guess the system that we have, and it's a system I guess a lot of roasters use, but we tend to loan a lot of equipment to customers when we get an account, and anything that we own as an asset, we don't charge anything for. Don't charge a show-up fee, don't charge any labor. We just come out, get it fixed. Espresso equipment, we do sell parts and labor, and our labor is way lower than any of the markets that we're in, and it's basically just enough to cover our cost, and it really doesn't do that. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they've got access to manufacturer original parts. We don't buy any aftermarket parts. We buy from the manufacturer, and we're trained by the manufacturers to do that work. And we just want to make sure they have access to like the top level of service that they can get for as cheap as it can be.
This question might be for Alex too, but how do you, with 14 techs on 2 coasts, how do you make everybody feel part of the same team and not out on islands?
That's a really good question. We hang out a lot. We actually do, we'll do what we call a service summit, and we'll tend to leave like maybe one person. We'll pick one person to stay in each market, but we all will get together. Last year we all went to LA and hung out for a few days. We went through a draft installation training at Micromatic because we're doing a lot of cold brew keg installs these days. So, and then we have a internal email that's just an all service email, and we constantly are emailing each other like, hey, I found this thing out, or we send pictures like, hey, did you know that the PB has this in the programming now? And so we really do communicate a lot, almost too much maybe, because my phone goes off all the time. But I really do try to treat it like a team. And the other thing is that I've been doing this for 11 years for Stumptown, and I still go out in the field and actually do service calls and installs. I don't want it to really ever feel like I'm like the boss guy over here that's never actually touching the equipment or in the field. So I want it to feel more like a cohesive team, even if it is geographically separated a bit. And another good example of that is we went through some turnover in our New York market 2 years ago, and I flew my whole family out, Stumptown, flew my whole family out, and I stayed there for 6 months while we hired and trained a whole new staff. Some we pulled internally and some from external. And while that was going on, it was me out in the field for 60, 70 hours a week for the first 2 or 3 months, because it was just me and one other guy. And because we needed the help, our Portland crew was like, just bring us out, we'll come out. So we basically did a rotating, one tech would come out for a week or two at a time and stay and go back to Portland. And it was really awesome because as we hired a team, they all got to do their ride along with our Portland team in New York City, which has a whole nother level of just craziness and stress to doing the job there. So our team got to see what their team has to go through and deal with in their job, while also kind of training them and getting a real feel for the culture. And so our team is awesome. I love those guys.
Thank you for sharing all that information. We're actually looking at hiring a service manager, and I'm wondering what attributes should we be looking for? Picked up on a few of the things that you've mentioned, but is there anything specifically that we should be particularly cognizant of?
Well, so I just hired a service manager in New York a couple of years ago, and He is awesome. He's got a background in coffee. I already knew him. He was a wholesale customer of ours in Ashland, Oregon, at a place called Mix, which is a really cool sweet shop and ice cream store. And while he was there, Ashland's about 6 hours away from Portland, and that's a long time to wait for a service call sometimes. And so we had a relationship while he was there where I would just send him parts to have on his shelf. And he's a real smart guy. And when he would have an issue, he would call me, and I would walk him through like how to change his gauge out or how to change his pump out if he needed it. And he actually went on to start his own coffee roasting company with a partner down there called Noble. And eventually, a few years later, he moved out to the East Coast, and we had posted for this service manager job, and he applied for it. And it was kind of a perfect timing for him and for me, because he had now had sort of like, coffee shop management, barista, opening his own roastery, running his own wholesale department as his own company. And so he had all of that kind of technical stuff with a really heavy administrative background on top of it. And we really kind of lucked out with that. That's, I don't know how we lucked out that way, but that's kind of exactly what we were looking for, was somebody who could do and understand the technical side of things, understood like water chemistry, things like that, and could also speak to a customer and be a killer, ambassador for our company. And it just worked out really well for us.
Also say, see what your needs are first and what your plan is. Let's say if you're planning on large scale and you're looking to be in multiple cities, or if you're just needing somebody that's going to manage your equipment, do the technical work, get out there and get dirty. We just hired a replacement for myself, and we needed somebody with a specific skill set, which was experience overseeing large service departments in multiple areas. So instead of trying to see what service or coffee professional could fit the molds, we went out and found somebody who's experienced with that has a good 10, 15 years of managing 200 to 300 technicians in different cities with multiple service managers. It just kind of see what your needs are, and then make sure that person's on board for what you need, and make it very narrow for them. I need you to be in the field 30 to 40 hours a week and manage this and do that. But if they're directly dealing with the technicians, they have to know what they're doing. If they do not know how to fix equipment, I think I was on the phone probably more with my technicians than anything else in my life. So if they're not able to help them, then they're not going to do their job well.
Yeah, I'm frequently contacted by people who are just beginning or want to begin doing service and repair work in the coffee industry with little to no experience, but they're enthusiastic and excited. And I've got my own recommendation of kind of a prerequisite skill set to be an effective tech, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. What are some recommendations you would give to folks who are just looking to get started up in technical repair?
Don't have a life.
Don't want a life.
You don't want one.
Ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to be yelled at.
Yep. No, yeah, I think, as I said before, I look for, some coffee background and some passion in the coffee industry, but I also kind of look for technical skills, but I don't look for necessarily directly I know how to fix things, but a lot of what I look for is more of deductive reasoning, logic. Can you figure out how this thing works without me telling you?
Yeah.
And I do a lot of that in my training. I ask them questions a lot to see if they can tell me what they think is going on before I tell them what really is going on. And I think that's a really important skill to have is just sort of that logic and deductive reasoning, being able to sort of trace your way through the guts of an espresso machine or a coffee brewer and see where the water is coming in, where it's coming out, where the electricity is going, things like that. And then also, as I was saying, in my interview process, I kind of try to scare them a little bit because it can be crazy. When we installed our Pine Cafe on Capitol Hill in Seattle, I think that I was there continuously for like 28 hours by myself, and got it all. And it was just like, it has to get done today because we're going to open tomorrow. There's no other option. There's nobody you're going to be able to call to get it done necessarily. And the reality now is that that's not true. We've got 15 other people that you can call for help. But I like to make sure that they're aware that it's a potentially difficult job. I think there's a conception sometimes with people that want to get into it that, oh, we're just tinkering around and changing temperatures and having fun in the coffee shop, and they don't necessarily see the side where we're crawling around under a dirty coffee encrusted counter, wet machine full of chocolate and honey and things like that. So it can be dirty, it can be hard, it's heavy lifting, you're in and out of a van, you're driving. So I really like to impress on people that like there's this whole huge thing that you might not be expecting, and as long as you're willing to like put in the hours, we will put in the hours to train you. And we also my team, I try to give them a bit of leeway and a bit of freedom because I'm fully aware that by Thursday you might be at 50 hours this week. So I don't expect you to come in at 9 a.m. Just let me know, shoot me a text and let me know that you're not going to be there until 10 or whatever. And we're pretty forgiving with that kind of stuff because I know how crazy the job can be and stressful.
That's one quick thing. And it's easy to talk about techs, and I hear you saying that all the time over here. You talk about techs. Where I'm from, there are service technicians, and I try to think about the balance between service and technical, because from my point of view, it's as important. And I would also like to add, because Alex is talking a lot about the downside with this profession, but I also think, and the feedback that I got from my technicians back home, is that they are also loved when they leave the place. The customer might be angry with them when they walk in, but it's occasionally a hug when they walk out. So, thank you.
That personality that really loves fixing things and then seeing the reaction of it, because it's so fulfilling. Like the first couple of weeks when someone's out on their own, they come back and they're like, "I did that," and they have like this whole new ownership. So I totally agree that when you go through a rough season or a 24-hour install or a 16-hour day, at the end of it, you're like, yeah, I kicked that ass. You're like, I made it, like, you can't break me.
I did it.
I did it.
All right, guys, we got to cut it off. We've gone over time, but let's hear it for our service technicians. Thank you for your time and generosity, guys. That was awesome.